The year is 1692. Winter's icy grip still clung to the small, isolated village of Salem, Massachusetts. The snow blanketed the ground, creating a stark, white landscape that seemed to stretch endlessly, a harsh place carved from the wilderness. The dense, dark forest loomed ominously, a constant reminder of the untamed world beyond the village's borders. The townsfolk, devout Puritans, lived lives governed by strict religious code. Every action, every thought was measured against the teachings of their faith. Fear was a constant companion, fear of the devil, fear of the unknown. It was a fear that seeped into their daily lives, influencing their every decision. Fear lurked in every shadow whispered on the wind. The barren trees and the howling wind seemed to carry the whispers of unseen forces. Life in Salem was harsh, unforgiving. The villagers struggled daily against the elements, their survival a constant battle. The people toiled from dawn till dusk. Their hands were calloused, their faces weathered by the relentless demands of their environment. Their faith was their bedrock, their only solace. In the flickering candlelight, they found comfort in the words of the Bible, a beacon of hope in the darkness. But beneath the surface, a current of unease stirred. Uneasy glances and suspicious looks became more frequent, hinting at the growing tension. The unknown pressed in from the surrounding forests. The dense, foggy woods seemed to harbor secrets, adding to the villagers' sense of dread. Old grudges festered, simmering beneath the veneer of piety. Disputes and disagreements, once minor, now took on a more sinister tone. Then the darkness began to take hold. The once clear skies were now often overcast, as if reflecting the growing turmoil within the village. It started with whispers, strange fits, and accusations. The air was thick with suspicions, and the villagers began to turn on one another. The very fabric of their world, held together by faith and fear, began to unravel. The once unshakable belief in their faith was now marred by doubt and confusion. The devil, it seemed, had come to Salem. The village, once a place of refuge and faith, was now shrouded in an atmosphere of fear and uncertainty. It began, subtly, almost imperceptibly. In the dead of winter, a group of young girls began to exhibit bizarre behavior, fits, screaming, uncontrollable outbursts. Their actions were inexplicable and frightening. Their families, baffled and terrified, sought explanations. They turned to the only sources of knowledge they had. The village doctor was consulted, but he found no physical ailment. His remedies and reassurances did little to calm the growing panic. Was it a disease, a curse? The whispers started. Fear and superstition began to take hold of the village. The finger of blame fell upon Tituba, a slave woman. She was different, an easy target for their fears. She became the scapegoat, accused of practicing witchcraft. Her life, already difficult, became a living nightmare. The accusations spread like wildfire, fueled by fear and suspicion. The village was gripped by hysteria. Soon, other women, outsiders, those different in some way, were accused. The whispers became screams. Innocent lives were torn apart. The Salem witch hunt had begun. The entire community was engulfed in a frenzy of accusations and trials. The trials were a spectacle of fear and paranoia. Neighbors turned against neighbors, friends against friends. Spectral evidence, the testimony of the accusers who claimed to see the spirits of the accused attacking them, was accepted as proof. It was a terrifying and irrational standard. The accused had no defense against the spectral evidence. Their pleas for reason and justice fell on deaf ears. Their words meant nothing against the terrified cries of the afflicted girls. The village was lost to madness. The trials were presided over by local magistrates, men of the cloth and law, but ill-equipped to deal with the hysteria that gripped Salem. These men, though learned in scripture and colonial law, found themselves overwhelmed by the sheer intensity of the fear and paranoia that had taken hold of the town. Cotton Mather, a prominent Puritan minister, arrived in Salem bringing with him his own brand of religious fervor. Mather, a man deeply entrenched in his beliefs, saw the events unfolding in Salem as a divine test, a battle between good and evil that required unwavering faith and action. Mather believed in the existence of witches and saw the trials as a battle for the soul of New England. His sermons, filled with fire and brimstone, only served to fan the flames of fear and suspicion among the townspeople. The trials became a crucible, testing the very soul of Salem. Neighbors turned on neighbors, friends betrayed friends. The once tight-knit community was torn apart by distrust and paranoia. as the fear of witchcraft spread like wildfire. The accused, desperate to save themselves, pointed fingers, naming more and more supposed accomplices. Each accusation led to another, creating a never-ending cycle of fear and betrayal. The accusations spiraled out of control. What began as a few isolated incidents quickly grew into a full-blown witch hunt, with no one safe from suspicion. The trials became a macabre performance. The courtroom, once a place of justice, turned into a stage for fear and hysteria, where the line between truth and fiction blurred. The afflicted girls writhed and screamed, claiming to be tormented by the spirits of the accused. Their dramatic displays of suffering added fuel to the fire, convincing many of the presence of evil in their midst. The accused, often subjected to horrific tests and interrogations, confessed to impossible crimes, hoping for leniency. These confessions, extracted under duress, were taken as undeniable proof of their guilt. The court, caught in the grip of mass hysteria, accepted these confessions as proof of guilt. The line between reality and delusion vanished, leaving Salem in a state of chaos and fear. Section 4. Justice betrayed. The legal proceedings were a mockery of justice. The accused were denied legal counsel. Hearsay and spectral evidence were the primary forms of evidence. The trials were less about seeking truth and more about purging the village of supposed evil. The consequences were swift and brutal. Those found guilty faced imprisonment, torture, and even death. The most common sentence was death by hanging. The first to be hanged was Bridget Bishop, a woman known for her independent spirit and sharp tongue. Her death set a chilling precedent. Giles Corey, an elderly farmer, refused to enter a plea, knowing that to do so would mean forfeiting his property. He was subjected to a horrific death, pressed to death under heavy stones. His dying words, a curse upon his tormentors, echoed the despair and injustice of the trials. Section 5. The Poisoned Chalice. Theories abound as to the true cause of the Salem Witch Trials. Some point to ergot poisoning, a fungal infection that can cause hallucinations and convulsions. Ergot thrives in damp conditions. And the rye bread that was a staple of the villagers' diet could have been contaminated. Others suggest political and economic motivations. Salem was a village divided by land disputes and religious differences. The accusations may have been a way for some to gain power or settle old scores. Jealousy, resentment, and greed may have fueled the flames of hysteria. The trials exposed the dark undercurrents of Puritan society. The rigid social structure, the repression of women, and the constant fear of the devil created a breeding ground for suspicion and paranoia. Section 6. In the Shadow of the Gallows. As the summer of 1692 waned, so too did the fervor of the witch hunt. Doubts crept in. Accusations against prominent citizens led to skepticism. The use of spectral evidence was questioned. The governor of Massachusetts, concerned by the escalating chaos, intervened. The trials were suspended and a special court was established to review the cases. Many of the accused were released, their convictions overturned, but the damage was done. Lives had been lost, families torn apart. The reputation of Salem forever tarnished. In the aftermath, there was a collective sense of shame and regret. The trials became a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the dangers of mass hysteria, false accusations, and the abuse of power. Section 7. Salem's Enduring Shadow. Centuries later, the Salem Witch Trials continue to captivate and haunt us. The events of 1692 serve as a stark reminder of the fragility of justice, the power of fear, and the human capacity for cruelty. Salem has become synonymous with witch hunts, a metaphor for the persecution of the innocent and the dangers of unchecked power. The trials serve as a reminder of the importance of critical thinking, due process, and the protection of individual rights. The legacy of Salem is complex and multifaceted. It is a story of tragedy and justice, and the resilience of the human spirit. It is a story that continues to resonate today, reminding us to guard against the forces of fear, intolerance, and extremism that can so easily unravel the fabric of society.